So, good morning. I'm Lauren Cook. I'm your Dean of College and Gap Year Advising at JCHS, and you are in your first coffee with Miss Cook. I am actually on to water at this point, but whatever beverage you need to get your day started. Um, and I started doing these during COVID when we obviously could not get together in person. And I felt that they were important to continue, and I'll be doing them once a month for the balance of the school year as an opportunity I typically do a little content up top, whatever is appropriate for the point in the process, but then also allow the balance of the time for questions for folks, whatever is on your mind as adults here, that we can all, get questions answered and feel informed about the process, certainly headed into senior year. So, a couple of housekeeping items up top. The default in my room is on mute, and I'd ask you to just stay on mute as I do a little content here for the first 5 minutes or so. And then I'll just be taking questions, and we can do it live if you raise your Zoom hand or jump in or put something in the chat, and I will read them out loud for anyone who is watching a recording of this later. And to that point, we are recording, and I do tend to distribute to everyone, hopefully by Shabbat of the week that we've done it, but it also depends on when Mr. McDonald can get it up to YouTube. But if you're ever able to not make it, know that there will be the conversation captured later to review. And then these are designed to just be an hour-long program. If we don't have questions that lead us all the way up till 9, great. But if we do, I will have a hard stop at 9 just to respect everyone's time, and we will pick it up whether on email or in the next session the next month. So with that, I will just give you a little bit of an update about what's been happening at school besides color games, if you've been hearing about that this week, Spirit Week. So I finished my last junior meeting last Friday, so I have met one-on-one with all of your kids over the last 2 months. And if you haven't heard about those meetings, I know some folks are more communicative than others. Basically, we talked about the students' questionnaire a little bit. I asked some follow-up questions, just wanted to get to know them a little bit better, take some notes, and try and get the scope of the things that they've done and what they're interested in thus far. We did discuss their college preferences at the moment. Experience tells me that those will evolve and change over the next year or so. But we did talk about some of their interests and preferences as they know them to be right now. We also checked in on testing and whether we are going to continue on a testing path at all. And right now, I'd say somewhere between a quarter and a third of the senior class didn't do any testing at all, but the balance of them did. So I do think the slight majority of the class of 2027 is going to pursue some kind of testing. And then we also did a little brainstorming about faculty letters of recommendation. And we will circle back to that again at the end of the year, at which point they will actually make some requests. But for some folks, it was an easy list of folks they were thinking about asking. For others, it was a little bit of I haven't really thought about that. So we did some brainstorming, and I asked them to be mindful of this as they try to be on time to class and doing revisions and interacting with professional community the next few months. And then I did end those meetings talking to them a little bit about what their college advising homework might be for the next few months. For most students, it is to think about booking at least one test sitting where applicable. April, May, June, July, whatever might make sense for them, the ACT or the SAT. I know some folks who've been trying to book recently are running into issues with everything being booked up in the Bay Area. That is par for the course over the last few years. But I will say, and the advice I've been trying to give folks is to still potentially try and book a sitting, even if it's in Monterey or Turlock or something, knowing that in the past year, both the College Board and the ACT have rented out hotel ballrooms, the Moscone Center, other large places in February, March, and let folks know that more seats have opened up in the Bay Area. Usually they will let folks know that directly if you've booked a sitting, or let me know as the counselor, or both. So I will let the class know. And then typically you can move your sitting somewhere closer to home. If for some reason they're not meeting demand this year, you can always move the test sitting out to, a date in July or August or September once the 26, 27 school year spots open up so you don't have to drive to Turlock or whatnot. But my apologies for this being the way it is, but with most of the public institutions on the West Coast no longer requiring testing, the sitting situation has been a little difficult. So we will keep an eye on it, and hopefully everybody gets what they need this spring. And then the other bit of research is just to be looking at colleges. And so I know folks are making plans for spring break trips, signing up for some virtual visits, which is great, doing some research on the internet. All of these things are good, and there's no set timeline on this. This is just a project for the next couple of months. And in SCORE, if you haven't looked at your child's list, I've put some suggestions in there. You may have put some suggestions in there. They may have their own list of colleges going. But as they are considering schools, they should move them to their following column. It is this kind of social media definition of places they are thinking about. Those are following schools. And, as we get into the summer, that's really the time to be thinking, okay, well, I know there's some subset we're definitely going to apply to. So start moving some of those into the applying column. But this is just over the next 6 months to start, shopping, looking at the options, getting on some campuses when possible, testing things out and starting to build that list. As we move into February, I'm happy to schedule meetings as necessary with whoever wants them. So I've already started having some one-on-ones with some of you. Know that I have an appointment calendar that's always linked in my signature on my email. It's in the portal. The kids know there's a QR code on my door, and if you're in the building, to just snap that and schedule an appointment if you'd like it. Happy to meet on Zoom, happy to meet in person. If you want to talk one-on-one, if you want to have a whole family meeting, but the ball is really in your court for the next month or two as to if you need to communicate with me and how you do that. I'm also happy to just answer email questions. And I will touch base with most seniors again, or rising seniors, next month as we get into course scheduling. So that's an obvious place for us to touch base. And then everybody needs to meet with me one more time before the end of the school year. And I will stop monologuing here with just two reminders of save the dates coming up. Next Tuesday, I sent out a notice about this, but I'll do another reminder early next week. There is a college money method session on Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m. Which is understanding your ability to pay and aid eligibility. If you have not engaged at all with any of the financial side of college, I would urge you to do so before you get into senior year. And we're really grappling with awards and all of that. This is a session that's actually designed for sophomore families, or just getting into the process, but certainly junior folks sit in on it as well, especially if you haven't started to really think about financial aid yet. So Paul is great. And I'm actually one of the hosts that night. Usually there are two counselors in the room to welcome folks and help with Q&A. And there are families that'll be in the room from other Bay Area independent schools. So Paul always does a little bit of content and then some time for Q&A. I think they're very helpful, but they also get recorded. So I will send information out if you aren't able to make it on Tuesday night, but want to watch it later. So that is February 3rd, next Tuesday at 6:30. And then a super heads up for April. April 19th, which is a Sunday, and I will send lots of reminders about this, but I think it's always good to scratch in your calendar now. There's a great college program in San Francisco at the University of San Francisco campus, and the 10 or so San Francisco independent schools are all invited to attend. So there's usually about 1,000 folks that are at this event. And we call it the Case Studies Program because the first half of it is doing a mock admission committee in smaller rooms, groups of 20 or so students and parents, with college admission representatives. About 100 colleges come to this event, and it's usually the folks who are responsible for reading applications from San Francisco. So it's also a nice networking time for students. But the first hour of it is doing a mock admission committee of these kind of fake applications, and college reps take you through the process of how applications are reviewed. Now, caveat, this is really about schools that are on the common application, which is most most out-of-state publics and most private schools at this point, but this is not like UC California specific. And then the second half of it is a college fair, and all of the colleges are in, I think, two different gyms on the USF campus where you can ask questions, get information, get on mailing lists. And I hear every year that it's an incredibly helpful moment to get some behind the curtain, understanding of how your materials might be reviewed and weighed in the process, to also get a chance to interface with college reps. And I think for our students who aren't quite locked in to really thinking about this and seeing this as kind of real, it does serve as sort of a spark of, interest, engagement, pure, sort of culture is that we're all as a little JCHS crew at this thing and learning more about it. So that's April 19th. It's in the afternoon, usually a 2 to 5-ish time frame, although I will have more information closer to the date. So bookmark that for now. Okay, so I'm going to stop monologuing. Everyone's cameras are off, which is fine. But I am really curious to know what is on your minds at this point. And you are welcome to ask me live any question. You are welcome to type them into the chat. But obviously, super specific things about your own child is better handled for us offline. But if you've got some general questions about the process, I would love to know what you're thinking about at this moment. So, any questions? No questions just yet. Well, I can give you a preview of what we tend to do with future coffees with Miss Cook. I will be focusing specifically on thinking about GAP programs next month. And typically in March or April, I will bring in a couple of college admission officers. Last year, we were lucky to have the VP from UCLA, the director of admission from Scripps, and an associate director from University of Denver, three very different kinds of places, to talk a little bit about the process and answer questions from the different viewpoints of a large research institution, a mid-sized school, and a small liberal arts college. Sometimes I will have parents of the senior class come in, usually in May, and talk about what just happened and if they have any advice for you. And sometimes Miss Beck is able to join us too and talk a little bit about the social emotional part of the process and how to kind of keep your kids intact as we're going through this. Okay, so we have a question in the chat. How long before the ACT or SAT should we start tutoring or prep? Great question. So I think that this generally we think about prep as like a 6 to 8 weeks before your test date. So if you're booking something in June, I would then, back up on your calendar around 2 months before that test date to really be going full bore at it. Some folks might do more than that, but I would just caution you, we don't want test prep to feel like sustained long-term extracurricular activity for no other reason than your child will get burnt out on it, right? And I think that some of this answer depends on where your student is at with their curriculum. So the SAT, for example, is more algebraic. If a student is in Algebra 2 right now, there is still half a year of course content that they would benefit from that will help them with the test. So starting test prep right now for a June test date, when they're literally going to get some of it curricularly in class, is kind of duplicating efforts and maybe throwing money at a problem long term that you don't need to be spending. So I can also answer this individually for your child if you're not quite sure where they might be curricularly. If someone's in pre-calc this year or whatnot, it's probably fine to be getting started on the test prep. And how you choose to prep can be up to you. It's everything from free options or quasi-free, if you purchase a book, although the test prep books are a little less helpful at this point as so many of these tests have moved online. I do think you need to balance some content drilling that might come in a book with actual prep of taking a practice test in the format that you're going to be taking it in, which is often online. But there are free options on both the ACT and the SAT, the College Board website. College Board in particular partners with Khan Academy, and it can be responsive to your PSAT scores that are in your the student's College Board account. So if you go into the test prep part with Khan Academy, it can drill you a bit on content. And I think there's at least one free full length test that you can take within the College Board portal. I believe that it's the same with ACT. They've tried to match the sort of Khan Academy offerings, but it's not Khan Academy. It's like ACT Academy, something like that. So those are sort of some free or low cost options that are online. I did just forward to all of your kids something from Marigold Prep, which is a local test prep company. They're offering some free proctored full length ACT and SAT tests on weekends coming up. And as I receive those kind of offers from test prep companies, I'll push those out to you. I think balancing content with being in the testing zone and just getting used to the timing and the rhythm of the test and the test duration, which is shorter than it used to be. That's one benefit to it being online at this point, is that it's not the perhaps 3 to 4 hour experience that some of us may have had with our test prep process. It's or our testing process. It's shorter now, like 2 hours or so, but it's still very important that the student do that a couple of times and get those practice test results to see if it's moving the needle a little bit as they get used to the content, the rhythm, the timing of it. The ACT has fewer seconds per question, for example, and so just really getting used to that. And then you can spend more money beyond that. There are test prep classes. There's one-on-one tutoring that can be done. There's in-person options. There's online options. The two companies that our families work with most often are Compass Prep, who did the practice ACT for folks last fall, and Revolution Prep. Compass can be pricey. I do see great results for them, and they're really, at the top of their game. And I watch, with the SAT, a couple 100 points sometimes improvement for students. With the ACT, they are able to get it up a few points on the different grading scale. But Revolution Prep can be a little bit more cost effective. And they offer, I think, more online options than Compass. But really, folks are doing their own research as well. You can hop on ChatGPT or other options and put in what your financial or timing constraints might look like, and see what feedback it gives you. But to get back to the basic question, usually about within 2 months of the test date is a good time to really be getting serious about this. Other questions, or it could be a follow-up on the testing. I will reiterate what I said to a lot of your kids in our first meeting, that grades this year are important. I don't want folks to necessarily be sort of grade grubbing and can I get from the A to the A plus or whatnot. But this is the last full year of academic work that colleges are seeing. So what they do in the next few months can really make a difference. If they're getting straight B's right now and can nudge some of those into A's, it does really help. And if UCs or CSUs are a significant part of your process, or really any part of your process, both of those systems create a GPA for the student that is just sophomore and junior year. So junior year, that's 50% of the GPA for the UCs or CSUs right now. They look at classes from all 4 years. Those are important for eligibility purposes, but grades in junior year are really important right now. Okay, another question in the chat. Does it make sense to wait and see where you get in before booking a tour? Also a good question. I think that I'm going to broaden the question a little bit. I wouldn't wait until you've got admission offers, which is, a year from April for most institutions to go and visit, because the time between when you have all of your admission offers, which is generally around April 1st, and the time when you need to commit to a school, a month later, May 1st, is really short, right? And sometimes Pesach break falls conveniently in there and people are able to do more visits. But often it's really crunchy. And especially if we're talking about schools that are in some different geographic locations. But on the flip side, I don't think you need to see every single place that your child is going to apply before deciding to apply. So I think we're trying to balance somewhere in the middle. I do think it's important for students to get on some college campuses and get a sense of how they feel about a place, size wise, what's nearby, access to nature, access to urban areas. These are preferences I hear. What do actual students look like on campus? Sometimes people can have a visceral reaction of like, these are my people, or like a hard no, I can't see myself being here. So I do think it's important before you get into decision time senior year to have stood on some college campuses. And I had someone 2 years ago who was sure they wanted to do sports management. They knew they wanted to be in a big athletics culture school, preferably Division One, Big Ten, et cetera, et cetera. And that was where the bulk of their applications went. And then when we got to April and they'd gotten into places and they went to go visit the first Big Ten school they stepped on, they were totally overwhelmed and suddenly was panic emailing me from their visit trip saying like, Miss Cook, I think I got this all wrong. And so I do think it's really important, even if it's just sampling a couple of sizes of schools. And so, one thing you could really be doing right now is just go to Berkeley and take a formal tour. Go to Santa Clara, take a formal tour, go to USF, go to St. Mary's, Moraga. And your child and you do not have to be actually interested or viable candidates for any of these places, but just to A, get a sense of the diversity of what's out there, and B, how they react to it, right? How do they feel about being somewhere urban like USF, where you're like looking for crazy traffic just to get to your class buildings, navigating a campus the size of Berkeley, being somewhere sort of smaller, more manicured, very aesthetically pleasing of Santa Clara, but there's not like a bunch of stuff you can walk to, right? So just kind of getting a taste of what's out there is going to help us tremendously later on. And then we've got another question in the chat. Let me look and see. How much does AP load during senior year matter? Thank you so much for this question because I think we're about to all grapple with this as we go into course scheduling starting next week. Generally, I would say rigor and increasing the students' rigor a little bit each year matters. And so our shorthand for that can be advanced placement courses, but it can also be just taking the next thing in succession. So whether that's increasing your language option next year, whether it's doing advanced Bible and commentaries too, whether it's doing an honors course. So I think that colleges are looking to see what we offer, and our JCHS profile, which is on the college advising website. If you want to look at this, you can actually download it and look at it. Goes with every transcript in a student's application packet. And a college can see in the humanities department and languages and Jewish studies and science the full range of our curriculum. And then they're going to overlay, so what did this student take advantage of? And it doesn't mean that you have to have gone to an honors or AP level in every department. And very few students do that, are interested in that, have the capacity for that. But what they are looking to see is what a student is curious about, interested in, good at, potentially thinking about a major or career in. Have they, started to increase the rigor in junior and senior year and investigate those areas? So all of the course scheduling stuff is very much a puzzle. And so if you've got a student who's thinking about law, government, politics, that's one sort of popular area. I, as a college admission representative, and therefore as your college counselor, are going to expect to see perhaps AP US history or doing AP comparative government at some point, maybe some more advanced classes in other humanities. Maybe we did Jewish ethics, that those are areas where there has been rigor. It doesn't mean they also have to have done AP physics and AP calculus BC, because that's not necessarily their interest, their area of interest for study. But I will be looking to see, did they continue with math or science or a language into junior and senior year? Because they're also sort of counting, have you done 3 to 4 years of the main academic disciplines? So our graduation requirements at JCHS do require students to follow this pathway. So your kids are not, sort of out of the loop if you haven't been paying attention to this. We've been paying attention to it. But I will want us to make some judicious decisions next year, because while advanced courses and rigor are important, so is succeeding in them. And so if a student, wants to tackle 4 AP classes next year and they're going to get B's in all of them, we're kind of defeating the purpose here a little bit because we also want to stay mindful of that GPA. So it's a bit of an art and a science. It doesn't mean a B in an AP class is bad, but the question is always: is it better to get A's? Is it better to take AP classes? And an admission rep, especially at some of the most highly selective places, is going to answer that with the very annoying, like, it's best to get A's in an AP class. So we're going to want to figure out how we can find the sweet spot for your child. And I will also note that the sweet spot for your child may be very different from their best friend, their classmate, their, Havrut partner. And so when the kids start comparing or trying to give each other advice, um, I would urge them to shush and stop, to not take each other's prescriptions because everyone's going to have their own sort of prescription based on their talents and skills and bandwidth and learning profile and college goals. So what's right for your child may not be right for someone else. So as you have questions about that, I'm very happy to answer them. And I do review every single rising junior and senior's proposed course schedule and have to sign off on it. So some of you may be getting emails from me next month or in early February to say, I'm a little concerned about this, either because I think we're under matching your student and they should maybe push themselves a little bit more, or I think we're setting ourselves up for a potential overwhelm situation. I'll also just note that Keystone in senior year works as sort of half. I mean, it is a class, but it's half a class in terms of meeting times where they meet with their, mentors or with Dr. Burl and Ms. Gluck as the folks that manage the program and sort of pursue their goals. And half the time it is a free space in their schedule where they could be meeting with me, working on college applications, all of that. For some students, that's enough free time, but I really do also want folks to think meaningfully about having a study hall in senior year as well, because the college process, can serve as having like a part-time job, especially in the fall. And so I know we do have some eager folks who like to stock themselves with 8 classes. And I think in senior year, that can be particularly treacherous territory. So if your child or you are thinking about that, please have a conversation with me, their advisor, Rabbi Buchan, to just make sure that that's the best path. So another question in the chat: should we opt in to be part of ACT's free program to share our information? So what I'm not sure about if that's sharing personal information or if that's sharing test scores with colleges. I'm going to say it's generally okay to share your information because sometimes the ACT or the SAT are sending that off to colleges, especially if your child is scoring particularly highly, that gets them on college radar screens. I think it's something like 32 cents a human for the College Board to be selling your child's information to colleges, but it's how they can start to get into pipelines and be identified as desired candidates. Okay, yes, contact details, demographics, interest and score range. I would opt into doing that because colleges still, this is how sometimes they build databases of who they're trying to do outreach to. And California is still, although slightly less desirous demographically, just meaning that our population of 18-year-olds is not predicted to go up. But colleges, especially on the East Coast, are still heavily recruiting in California. I think there is very much an interest in opening the gates to Jewish students. I think, and when your student is also scoring highly, that does get them into some pipelines of places they might not otherwise have thought about or reached out to. But this also just makes me give you a heads up on the SAT and the ACT. When you take it, you also have the option to send your scores for free to up to like 4 colleges. Before you've seen them, before you know if you want to. So as nice as it is to have this offer to send them for free, the timing of it, I think, is not good, especially for juniors. I would not be accessing the options to just automatically send some scores for free because, in the before times, before COVID, most places required official test scores. They didn't let you pick and choose from sittings what you were going to send. But now we live in a world where score choice, and this is a phrase you'll hear, is very much a thing where you can cherry pick your highest sittings, your highest, sometimes across sittings, so your highest English on the SAT, your highest math, even if that was two different dates. And that's what you can choose to show to colleges. So we want to retain control over your students' data scores and all of that until the very last minute. And we are making the best choices about if we're submitting scores and which scores we're submitting. So unfortunately, I'm going to tell you to decline the free score sending. And a lot of places allow you to self-report scores. So you just put it in your common application. And if you're admitted and enroll at that school, they might want the formal score report later. But fewer schools are asking up front for you to spend money to send them an official score report. So for what that's worth, file it away. Other questions? We've had some good questions here so far. It's good if we end early. That's all right. Okay. I'm confused. You started by saying we should do it, but then it sounds like don't do it. Not sure what I should do. Okay, so these are two different things. Let me be clear. Sorry if I wasn't being fully clear. You can absolutely check the box to opt in to share your demographic information with colleges. What you do not want to do, and this is where they would actually ask you to enter colleges, and you would do this, as you're registering, enter a college name like, yes, I want to send 4 free score reports to UC Berkeley, to Swarthmore, to Columbia. So you're not doing the wrong thing if you're not entering individual college names. The generic box of, yes, you can send my, data and all that sort of things to colleges is fine to check. But if they're asking you to identify particular schools to send official score reports for free, don't do that. So these are two usually different sections of the registration. I hope that's more clear. Great. Okay. Sorry, there's so many details with this process, and I'm fine with repeating myself over and over for the next few months because it's a lot of minutia to get a handle on. Any other questions? I will say, as folks are also, I'm having a lot of one-on-one conversations about trying to get a sense of Jewish life and Jewish climate on campus right now. This is, of course, an ever-evolving situation, and I'm continuing to find more resources all the time that I will periodically push out to the class. But I'll just remind folks that there can be a good amount of, and I found it to be much more accurate and more frequently updated data on Hillel.org, where you can look and see, is there a Hillel on a college campus? I've had a surprising number of your kids over the past few weeks say like, well, I assume everyone has one. They don't. So to pop on halal.org, that will usually tell you the percent of Jewish students on campus, of kosher foods available, et cetera. There is still the ADL grading system that's on the ADL website. Take it with a grain of salt because the last time they graded folks, most colleges got D's and F's. So it's not, you shouldn't cross a school off your list if that comes up, but it does provide a little bit more information and why they gave it that grade and whatnot. And it is also, it's sort of served as like a warning shot to a lot of colleges to start doing more work behind the scenes, which I think they are, to adjust the climate on campus. And then I did just discover something yesterday. I'm just going to try and remind myself of the name of it. Tribe Talk, which some of you may be familiar with, but Tribe Talk is a website that's was formulated by a couple of mothers who are also have different roles in the Jewish community nationally, that is giving some insight into what is available on campus in a more updated kind of way, Jewishly. So that's a place to explore as well. And of course, the Orthodox Union and Hillel and a number of places also do a once yearly sort of college guide to talk about places that they want to highlight in particular. So I would encourage your students to access those resources. And I do think that the ADL, if I'm getting this right, has also been doing more college search webinars periodically that I found to be really helpful. Hillel, I think, has been doing those as well. And then, of course, we've got our vast network of JCHS alumni sort of all over the country and in a couple of places around the world. So I am always happy to check my data bank of folks. And I find that our alums are really happy to give you real talk about how it feels to be on certain college campuses, where they're psyched to be, where, they might have some ambivalence and where they've actively transferred out of. So please feel free to reach out to me if you want any student contact information. Another question in the chat is the official ACT self-paced course that Kaplan offers worth it? Great question. I would say anything that's official with ACT or SAT is going to be privy to some real-time test data from those companies that can be really useful in a way that some of the companies that are unaffiliated with them are not. They're using old test data that's out in the public sphere, where the official stuff is getting more behind the scenes information from the test companies and ETS, the educational testing system as well. So yes, I think it would be worth it. Self-paced, I would also say, so that usually indicates to me that this is like a student doing, oh, good. Okay, we've got a parent saying my college student would say yes. As we think about self-paced or independent learning, that is going to be the cheapest way to do test prep, which is great. And I would want you and your child to just take a good hard look in the mirror and make sure you feel like they are a student who can follow through and do things independently and be self-paced and self-motivated. I'd say a good chunk of our students can, and a good chunk of our students can't. So just think about that, as you're assessing these options, because some folks are going to need the guardrails, the reminders, the help with their executive functioning to sort of keep up with it. But if you know that your student is someone who's really going to keep themselves on task, terrific. I would pursue any of the official stuff. Other questions? All right, gonna give it another minute as we think, and I'm gonna try and think about anything else that's coming up, anything with course scheduling. I do sometimes get some questions with language next year. If someone started with Hebrew 4 and they've done 4, 5, 6, do I need to continue on to 7, or can I do something else? I think that, and there's verbiage around you need to have 2 or 3 years of a foreign language. I think our graduation requirement is have gotten to a third level of a foreign language. This can all be a little bit confusing. But I would say if students want to continue with the language, terrific. It's one of the traditional disciplines that colleges look to see how far they've gotten with it. But because we have folks that can be native speakers in a language or have entered at a highly advanced level of something like Hebrew, if you entered JCHS at Hebrew 3, 4, 5, you have already kind of met or exceeded what colleges would expect to see of a level of a language. So then it's really the ball's in your court or in the student's court. If they want to have room to continue with AP biology, or to take an advanced Talmud class, or, if they're really looking for room in their schedule for more, it's not going to hurt them to stop their language. That can be a place where we can find some wiggle room. But again, it can also depend on what their specific goals are, major in college, et cetera. And I also do get questions about math and whether to continue with math, to go to the AP calculus level, whether statistics might be the better path, and know that that's very much a case-by-case scenario. Again, it's like the puzzle pieces of it all. So they should start with their advisor, get some advice from their math teachers, and then I'm happy to weigh in as well. If you're thinking about a STEM path or engineering, it's kind of a foregone conclusion. You do need to go to the highest math possible, but other areas we've got some more wiggle room. So that would be a conversation that I'm happy to engage with. All right. Well, no further questions have come up, so I think I'm just going to call it here. But hopefully, you know where to find me. Please email me if there's follow-up questions, if you want to schedule a meeting. Again, happy to do the meetings in person in my office. It's lovely to see all of you, but also happy to Zoom in. I know that commuting to JCHS is not easy for everyone. Remember, we've got College Money Method next Tuesday night if you want to get some low-key financial information. And I will push out the recording of this as I have it available. So I hope everyone has a great Thursday. It's starting to be sunny here in Alameda, so that's promising. And yeah, I'll hope to see some of you at school. Have a good day.